Empress Zalathra's claws tightened on the arms of her throne as the vaulted doors of the celestial chamber parted with a resonant hum. Princess Lyra entered first, her iridescent scales dulled by exhaustion, leaning heavily on the arm of the human, Jonah Reyes, who steadied her with a grip both firm and unobtrusive. Behind them strode Envoy Creshfall of the Vor Dominion, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with opportunistic fervor. "Your Radiance," Creshfall intoned, bowing low enough to signal deference but not submission, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustic crystals. "The Vor Dominion claims the debt of this rescue. Human Jonah Reyes acted under our flagged salvage protocols in neutral space. By right of prior claim and interstellar covenant, we demand his transfer to our custody, and a formal alliance treaty as recompense for the life of your heir." Zaltra's mandibles clicked once, a subtle signal to her high guard flanking the dais. The court, 24 counselors in their ritual sashes, physicians clustered by the healing alcove, and lesser nobles arrayed in shadowed alcoves, stirred with murmurs. Lyra's safe return was a triumph, yet this human's presence twisted it into a snare. She had dismissed his kind before, soft-fleshed opportunists, lacking the crystalline resilience of Nerith physiology or the calculated ferocity of Vor hives. But Lyra lived because of him. "Rise, envoy," Zaltra commanded, her voice a silken blade threading the chamber's tension. "The Empire acknowledges no debt to scavengers who circle our borders like void wraiths. Speak your proofs, if you possess them." Creshfall straightened, mandating a data slate forward with a flick of his secondary limbs. Holographic logs bloomed, the crippled Imperial shuttle adrift, Vor salvage drones in distant pursuit, and Rhea's vessel, marked with crude coalition insignia, intercepting first. "He wore our transponder codes, Empress, neutral space or not. The rescue binds him to Vor law. Yield him, and we offer mutual defense pacts against the Creel incursions. Refuse, and the Dominion recalls our traitors from your ports." Jonah Reyes stood silent at Lyra's side, his posture relaxed yet alert, dark eyes scanning the chamber without challenge. He wore a simple tunic over reinforced trousers, scarred hands visible where they supported the princess. No grand gestures, no boasts, merely competence in holding her upright as she caught her breath. Zalatra's gaze lingered on him, calculating. Expel him now, and Creshfall's envoy slithered away with a propaganda victory. Keep him, and court factions would howl of impurities. Lyra straightened slightly, whispering to Reyes before nodding her thanks. He released her arm with a faint incline of his head. "Physicians," Zalathra directed, gesturing to the alcove where attendants waited with nutrient injectors and regeneration webs. "Attend the princess. Human, state your account." Jonah stepped forward as Lyra was led away, producing a compact datapad from his belt. "Empress Zaltra," he said, his translated voice steady, carrying the faint harmonic burr of Coalition Standard routed through his implant. "Permission to file after-action report?" She waved assent, masking her curiosity. Humans filed reports. Vor envoys bartered lives like cargo. North healers invoked ancestral rights first. This one activated his pad, projecting a crisp holosummary. Timeline synced to the millisecond, debris trajectories mapped against stellar drift, triage logs cross-referenced with Lyra's vitals. The shuttle's core breach vented atmosphere at 14:27 ship time. Jonah continued, his fingers dancing across the pad to isolate schematics. Standard Nerith seals held for 17 minutes. Impressive under shear stress, but auxiliary O2 recyclers clogged with microfractal ice from the plasma wake. I prioritized hull patch over full evac, then manual override on the med bay. Princess Lyra had a fractured secondary mandible and toxin exposure from ruptured coolant lines. Administered your epinephrine analog at 0.8 milligrams per cycle, adjusted for her mass. A physician, Elder Viscar, interrupted with a hiss. Jonah didn't flinch. Observed reaction. Her chitin softened 12% under that dose in Sims. I cross-checked your public mednets. Your own archives note variants for high metabolism errors. Lower dose stabilized her without risking shell necrosis. Here's the protocol revision I drafted. The holo shifted to a streamlined flowchart, inputs for vitals, auto adjustments for age and injury type, outputs flagged for physician override. Viscar's crest flared in indignation, but he snatched the pad, mandibles working silently as he scrolled. The other healers leaned in, their whispers turning to grudging nods. Zalatra felt a flicker. Procedural precision, unadorned by ritual pomp. Neraith medicine exalted tradition. This human dissected it like salvage, spotting flaws her own experts had glossed. Creshval chittered, irrelevant parlor tricks. The human is vorbound. Silence, Zalthra snapped, her authority coiling like a storm. Internally, doubt stirred. Blanket dismissal of humans? This one's report wove data threads she hadn't anticipated. Multitasking hull repairs while monitoring Lyra's biometrics, adapting coalition tools to Enreth specs on the fly. Ordinary for him, perhaps. Extraordinary in its quiet efficiency. She rose fractionally, her throne's emitters pulsing imperial azure. Human Jonah Reyes, you are detained as honored guest under High Guard supervision. Quarters in the Eastern Wing, under seal. No expulsion. Your skills merit examination. The envoy's eyes widened. Radiance, this insults the Dominion. Counselor Thalrin, a traditionalist with spines etched in ancient runes, surged forward. And it profanes the throne, the Codex of Purity, verse 17. No non-Nerith shall consort within the sacred orbit, lest the lineage fracture like flawed crystal. He must be removed. Exiled to the void lanes, murmurs swelled. More traditionalists echoed the invocation, their sashes rustling like dry leaves. Zalethra's mind raced. Thalarine's faction clutched succession rights like shields, fearing any dilution of Lyra's claim amid rival claimants. Yet expelling Reyes handed Creshval a prize and ignored the competence now beaming from that pad, already integrating into Viscar's systems. Enough, she declared, her voice fracturing the din like a vibroblade. Propriety held, but a crack showed. Personal intrigue bleeding into decree. Reyes watched her steadily. No plea in his eyes, only patient readiness. It unnerved her. Nerith courtiers groveled or schemed. I issue Provisional Compact Delta 7, Saltera proclaimed, summoning the chamber's edict projector. Golden script unfurled. Jonah Ray is bound to court service as technical liaison, pending full treaty negotiation. Duties: advise on salvage protocols, medtridge, and threat assessment. Guarded movements. No unsupervised access to Lyra or archives. Violations forfeit to Imperial justice. Thalrin recoiled. Radiance. This invites chaos. He is no consort, but his presence taints. A tool tempers the forge, Shaltatra cut in, her tone laced with unyielding steel. The Empire endures by wielding strengths, not shattering them. Envoy, Creshval, your claim is noted, but unsubstantiated. Withdraw, or face countersuit for interference in Imperial recovery. Creshval's limbs twitched in fury, but he bowed sharply and retreated. Data slate clutched like a grudge. Guards escorted Reyes toward the wings, his stride unhurried, pad still in hand as if filing addendums mid-march. Zalatra settled back, the chamber exhaling into subdued conference. Lyra, now stabilized in the alcove, met her mother's gaze with quiet approval. Procedural competence. Jonah called it triage, but it dissected assumptions like a surgeon's cut. Humans, dismissed as chaff, yet this one mended her heir's fractures where ritual faltered. Traditionalists would press, rivals beyond the court scented weakness, but for now, the rescuer remained hers to wield. A rescue had become a treaty, and she refused to yield her newfound edge. High Guard Captain Sisrath approached the throne, saluting. Shall I triple the watch on the human, Radiance? Zalathra's mandibles curved faintly, not quite a smile, but a spark of anticipation. Observe closely, Captain, and report his every adaptation. We may yet forge something unbreakable from this anomaly. As the chamber emptied, she lingered, replaying the hollow report in her mind. Reyes had juggled crisis without fatigue, spotting patterns in debris and biology her physician's rote recited. Humble in execution, yet it cracked her world's certainties. The Empire needed such cracks to evolve, or shatter. In the Eastern Wing, under watchful eyes, Jonah Reyes would serve. And Zalatra would watch, weighing if a human's ordinary grit could anchor. Zalatra's claws tightened on the armrest of her throne as Envoy Kresh of the rival Valthor province leaned forward, his frilled crest flaring in aggressive insistence. The compact demands blood or bond, Sovereign. This human, Reyes, must stand as living pledge, confined until our borders stabilize, or our fleets withdraw support. The chamber's air hummed with the low vibrations of assembled nobles, their multifaceted eyes glinting under the vaulted crystal domes of the eastern wing. She held his gaze, her mandibles clicking once in measured restraint. Tradition bound her. Pledges sealed peace through captivity or union. A rite etched in North history since the fracturing wars. Yet releasing Jonah now, after his rescue of Lyra, would unravel the fragile alliance her daughter's safety had bought. "The human serves under royal oversight," she replied, voice resonant and unyielding. "He is no prisoner, but an asset formalized by decree." Kresh's crest quivered, but before he could retort, a sharp chime pierced the tension. The palace access node, its holographic emitters flickering erratically overhead. Alarms whispered through the wing's conduits, a sabotage subtle enough to evade routine scans but crippling for the envoy's secure departure. Guards stiffened, their armored crests snapping to attention, while technicians swarmed the pedestal console, their tools clattering uselessly against the locked interface. Jonah Reyes, stationed mere paces away as her newly decreed observer, stepped forward without command. His plain coalition jumpsuit, scarred from orbital salvage runs, marked him as outsider amid the iridescent robes. "May I?" he asked, voice steady, eyes already tracing the node's pulsing failure lights. Zalothra nodded curtly, curiosity sharpening her focus. "Let them witness." He knelt, ungloved hands delving into the access panel with a mechanic's familiarity. No ritual incantations, no ceremonial overrides, just fingers probing circuits. A small multi-tool from his belt whirring to life. The envoys murmured as he isolated a severed relay, bypassing it with a jury-rigged shunt from spare fiber optic strands he'd apparently pocketed earlier. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his movements flowed, rerouting power flows while monitoring 3 diagnostic streams on his wristpad, cross-referencing Nerith schematics he'd evidently memorized overnight. Kresh's mandibles parted in disbelief. "This is no ceremonial rank. He engineers as if born to our grids." Zalhatra watched, a rare friction stirring beneath her regal poise. Duty to tradition screamed for his confinement. A human pledge would bind Valthor without complicating succession. Yet his hands, now stabilizing the node's core matrix with an improvised harmonic dampener crafted from a guard's discarded comm crystal, revealed expertise her palace adepts chased through rote protocols. The hologram stabilized, emitters blooming full spectrum as secure channels reopened. Envoys exhaled in unison, their crests folding in reluctant approval. Jonah rose, wiping his hands on his thigh. Nodes back online. Sabotage was clean. Microfracture on the quantum latch. "I flagged the pattern for your security logs." The chamber fell silent, nobles exchanging glances. Her high guard captain, Thalor, rumbled low. "Sovereign, his adaptability rivals our field legions. We lose this pledge, and such skill departs with him." Friction coiled tighter in Zaltra's core. Imperial stability demanded tradition, Nerith bloodlines unbroken, alliances forged in ritual captivity. But the Empire's fringes frayed, rival incursions, failing shield nodes like this one. Jonah's ordinary repairs outpaced her technicians' hours of computation. Retaining him risked court schisms, yet discarding him invited practical collapse. She straightened, mandibles firm. Pragmatism must temper lineage, or the throne crumbled. To placate the envoys and honor the compact, she declared, "Jonah Reyes is assigned nominal advisory post to the Eastern Wing protocols. He advises under my direct observation, his movements logged, his value proven in service." Kresh bowed, crest subdued. "Formalized, Sovereign. Valthor accepts. For now." As the envoys withdrew through the now secure portals, a noble detached from the throng. Lord Vorin, his robes embroidered with marital vines, eyes gleaming with ambition. Lyra's rescue had elevated Jonah's status, but Vorin saw opportunity in tradition's breach. He approached the throne dais, voice oily with feigned deference. "A wise compromise, exalted one. Yet consider, replace this outsider with a Nerith consort of proven line. I offer my nephew, bound to Princess Lyra in sacred union, traditional succession secured, no alien variables to unsettle the court." Zalothra's gaze narrowed, sensing the undercurrent. Vorin's faction coveted the throne's shadow influence, marriage their lever to supplant her direct control. Jonah stood silent nearby, oblivious to the layering intrigue, already sketching node schematics on his pad. multitasking defense diagnostics amid political crossfire. His humility irked Voron's pride, a human unaware his resilience mirrored the endurance of ancient Nereth siegebreakers. "Lord Voron," she intoned, voice cracking the air like thunder-veined crystal, "your motion presumes my indecision." That The princess's pledge stands as is, human liaison, under trial. Voron's crest flared, then wilted under her stare. But tradition evolves with the Empire's needs. She rose, dismissing the assembly with a sweep of her primary clause. Jonah Reyes enters private trial under royal oversight alone. His post persists until I deem otherwise. Dismissed. The nobles dispersed, murmurs trailing like smoke. Fowler lingered, his guard stance easing into quiet respect. He reads our systems faster than acolytes, sovereign, and endures the scrutiny without fatigue. Valthor's envoys noted it. Word spreads. Zalthra turned to Jonah, who met her eyes without flinching, a faint human smile acknowledging the weight. "Your work holds, advisor. Report anomalies directly to me." He nodded, simple competence radiating. "Understood, Empress, grid stable. But I've got ideas for redundancy layers if you'll hear them." In that moment, friction yielded to calculation. Tradition bound her, but his hands, engineer's grit forcing her choice, promised strength the Empire craved. She would watch closer, way deeper. The throne endured not in isolation, but alliance forged in fire-tested worth. As the Eastern Wing's lights steadied, Zalthra felt the first subtle shift, a human's unassuming endurance anchoring what rituals alone could not. Councillor Voron's crest flared crimson as he slammed his taloned fist on the obsidian table, the chamber's holographic displays flickering in protest. The rescue of Princess Lyra was no mere anomaly, Majesty. It was a vector. Foreign agents slithering through the chaos Jonah Reyes wrought now infest the capital like parasites in the imperial vein. Zalathra's mandibles clicked once, a measured restraint that silenced the murmurs rippling through the High Council. Seated at the chamber's apex, her throne's aurora-veined stone hummed with latent power, mirroring the tension coiling in her primary hearts. The intelligence brief had materialized mid-session, encrypted bursts from the rescue incident's orbital debris field, traced to concealed relays in the guest wings. Divisions that had simmered now boiled, Voron's traditionalists baying for purges, the moderates like Councillor Eshra demanding evidence before blades fell. And at the periphery, Jonah Reyes stood, his human frame unyielding amid the Nareth posturing, eyes scanning the holos with that infuriating calm. "Present the traces," Zalathra commanded, her voice a silken blade. The central projection bloomed, spectral lines weaving through the palace's substructure, exploiting the very blackout Jonah had quelled hours before. Voron's faction seized it, their crests pulsing in unison. This outsider's meddling invited them. Expel the human, seal the compact before it bleeds us dry. Jonah shifted, not flinching, his gaze locking onto a faint anomaly in the guest wing's relay cluster, a microsecond lag no Nereth scanner had flagged. Zalthra noted it, the way his fingers twitched as if mapping circuits in his mind. "With respect, Councillor," he said, his translator humming with precise timbre. "That lag isn't random. It's a transmitter, piggybacking on the wing's combs. If it's live, every royal whisper's echoing off-world." Voron sneered, scales rasping. "Human conjecture. Our sweeps found nothing." "Then let me check it." Jonah's tone held no challenge, only the quiet assurance of someone who'd salvaged hulks in vacuum silence. Zalathra's secondary hearts quickened. Protocol demanded a full guard sweep, days of ritual scans. But the hollows hardened. The network's tendrils led straight to the Eastern Wing, where dignitaries from rival systems lodged. A leak now could unravel alliances before the compact's ink dried. "Granted," she said, rising with imperial finality. "Reyes, you have one cycle. Neutralize it under my watch." The council erupted, Voron's protests drowned by her glare, but she waved them silent. Jonah bowed once, a human gesture both alien and oddly deferent, then moved with purpose toward the chamber's exit, two high guard trailing like shadows. In the guest wing's shadowed alcove, Jonah knelt before an innocuous comm panel, its crystalline facets pulsing innocently. Zalatra observed from the corridor's veil field, her presence concealed yet commanding, flanked by Eshra and a silent guard contingent. The human's hands danced, fingers probing seams with a multi-tool scavenged from his salvage kit, eyes flicking between the panel's readouts and a portable scanner he'd jury-rigged from palace spares. No fatigue marked him. The Eastern Wing's restoration had stretched hours, yet he multitasked seamlessly, cross-referencing trace patterns against rescue telemetry, murmuring adjustments to his device in that fluid earth tongue before translating. "There," he said softly, voice carrying through the veil. A hairline fracture in the panel's core gleamed under his light. A foreign alloy, nano-woven to mimic Nareth crystal. Krellian make, exploits phase variants to bounce signals off debris sets. With a precise twist, he isolated the transmitter, its faint whine dying as he severed its quantum link. No explosion, no alarm. Just silence. And the hollows in Zaltra's gauntlet confirming the leak sealed, prevented. By a human's pattern site, where her tech priests had seen only clean lines. Voron's intelligence had crystallized mid-debrief, the spy network rooted in the rescue's wake, tendrils funded by off-world rivals scenting Nereth weakness. Jonah was no incidental helper now, an operational asset, his adaptability threading through their blind spots like a salvager's grapple. Zaltra's mandibles parted in a rare private flex of approval. Humans. Fragile biometric, yet they endured blackouts, juggled diagnostics mid-crisis, connected orbital salvage to Imperial espionage without rote invocation. Her initial dismissal, a curiosity for Lyra's favor. The anchored threats rituals glossed. Back in the chamber, as echoes of the council's recess faded, Zalthatra summoned him. "The transmitter is silenced. Your methods, efficient." Jonah nodded, wiping residue from his hands, humble as if sealing hull breaches were commonplace. "Just connecting dots, Majesty." "Your systems are solid," needed a sideways look. She inclined her head, formality cracking just enough for candor. "Then look further. I grant you temporary command of the trace detachment. My shadow operatives hunt the network's routes. Report only to me." His eyes widened fractionally. Surprise, not triumph. Before he accepted with a steady, understood. Voron's faction would howl, but the compact demanded pragmatism. Jonah's value tipped the scales. The hearing convened at dusk, crystal spires casting fractured light across the grand vault. Counselor Eshra testified on border packs, her words measured, when chaos erupted, a needle dart whispering from the vents, aimed for her throat. Jonah reacted first, shoving her aside with pack instinct, his body twisting to intercept. The dart grazed his shoulder, venom sizzling synth flesh, but he clamped it mid-air, scanner already whirring. The chamber dissolved into pandemonium, guards swarming, Voron's allies feigning shock. Zalthra surged forward, her aura field flaring to pin suspects. "Secure the vault." "Reyes, trace it." He nodded through gritted teeth, ignoring the venom's burn, human resilience shrugging off what would fell in earth, his multi-tool linking to the dart's residue. Patterns emerged. Voron faction sigils etched in the alloy, tying anti-human whispers to the strike. The compact teetered, assassins in the heart, branding Jonah's presence as poison. Voron blustered from his dais, crest ablaze. "A frame. The human provokes. Enough." Zaltra's decree cut like void steel. "This is no council matter. I order a closed inquiry under my sole authority, bypassing procedure. Reyes commands the investigation. Interference is treason." Gasps rippled, but her gaze quelled them. Eshra, saved by human reflex, bowed deeply, her scales shimmering with unvoiced gratitude. Voron paled, retreating into sullen silence. As the vault cleared, Jonah met her eyes amid the settling dust, shoulder-patched by a guard media unit, his optimism unbroken. "We'll root them out, Majesty. Together." Zalathra felt the shift deepen. Not mere utility, but partnership's edge. An outsider, now her unignorable guard, his quiet competence weaving into the throne's defense. Voron's faction reeled, the compact held by threads of alien insight. Yet in that gaze, mutual respect flickered, human endurance meeting imperial resolve, forging what tradition alone could not. The inquiry beckoned, shadows lengthening, but for the first time Zalatra sensed stability not in rituals, but in the human at her side. Admiral Kresh's hologram flickered into the throne chamber, his crest feathers rigid with urgency, the starfield behind him alive with the predatory glint of maneuvering fleets. Empress, the Vixari Concord has deployed 3 battle wings to our border nebula. 60 vessels cloaked in sanctioned rhetoric. They claim our pro-human compact violates trade pacts, threatening to choke our alloy imports unless we renounce the Outsider's pledge. Zaltra's claws tightened on the armrests of her throne, the weight of imperial eyes upon her. High Guard captains, council scribes, the ever-watchful Princess Lyra at her flank. Shadows stretched long across the obsidian floors. But stability? No, not yet. The human, Jonah Reyes, stood silent beside the dais, his posture unyielding as if such galactic saber-rattling were merely a salvage snag. She quelled the impulse to dismiss the report as bluster. The Vexari did not posture without fangs. And the Thalar Dominion? Her voice cut like a decree, formal, unyielding, mirroring them. Sovereign. Economic blockades proposed in the conclave feeds. Our crystal exports targeted. They call it preserving purity against alien taint. Kresh's mandibles clicked in disdain. Coordinated. Too precise for coincidence. Zaltatra's mind raced through alliances, the fragile web of empires that had held since her mother's ascension. Tradition demanded retaliation in kind. Fleet deployments, ritual embargoes, but the compact with this human rescuer, forged in Lyra's bloodied rescue, had already cracked those norms. Jonah's presence was no mere gesture. His hands had pulled her daughter from orbital wreckage, his coalition tech stabilizing the failing drives. Now, neighbors scented weakness. Jonah Reyes, she said, turning to him without rising, propriety holding her throne like chains. Your assessment? He met her gaze steadily, no deference beyond courtesy, his dark eyes scanning the hologram as if decoding a Junker's manifest. They're probing, Empress. Not invading, yet. But sanctions hit harder than lasers if they unify. Vexari alloys fuel our shipyards, Thalar crystals power the grid, lose both, and we're blind in a storm. Lyra shifted, her scales shimmering with unease, but Zalathra silenced her with a glance. The human spoke plainly, no boasts, yet his words pierced the chamber's tension like a well-aimed lance. Fragments intercepted, Jonah continued, nodding to a scribe who projected encrypted data bursts. Garbled Nerth script laced with alien ciphers. Diplomacy logs from their envoys. I pieced them together last cycle. He tapped his wrist calm, and lines aligned on the display. Patterns emerging from chaos. Timestamps linking Vexari jumps to Thalar ultimatums. It's a squeeze play. Isolate us politically. Force the compact's repeal before it embeds. They fear precedent. Humans allying with crowns. The chamber hushed. Scribes leaned forward, crests flaring in shock. Nerth codebreakers trained lifetimes for such weaves. This off-worlder, with his blunt fingers and coalition algorithms, unraveled it in hours. Zalathra felt the crack widen. Formal inquiry had become necessity. Jonah's methods defied rote ritual. No incense-burned auguries, no caste-sealed vaults, just pattern upon pattern. Human intuition threading the impossible. Kresh's hologram stuttered. How? Our cryptalists flagged those as unbreakable. Jonah shrugged, humble as drift rock. Seen similar in salvage ops, layered failsafes hiding manifests, cross-reference timestamps with your navlogs, then brute-forced the offsets. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. Zalatra's pulse thrummed beneath her scales, asymmetric. Human technical resilience offered edges her fleets lacked, adaptability where Nereth doctrine demanded precision. Sanctions loomed, ciphers confirmed the noose tightening. Protocol be damned. Stability lay not in isolation, but alliance. Reyes, she commanded, rising at last, her voice a silken blade. Attend me in the strategy chamber. Privately, gasps rippled. High Guard exchanged glances, Lyra's eyes widened. No outsider breached those vaults. Consultations were council rights, blood-sworn. Yet she strode forth, Jonah falling in step without question, his endurance unflagging after cycles of court vigils that felled aides. The chamber's doors sealed with a hiss, holotables igniting in defensive grids, border nebulae pulsing red, trade lanes strangled. Zalatra activated the inner wards, soundproofing the sanctum. Speak freely, human. Your ciphers unveil their game. What counters do your methods yield? Jonah circled the primary projection, multitasking seamlessly, Querying fleet manifests on one panel, sketching sanction evasion routes on another. Diversify suppliers first. Your Rimworld vassals have untapped forges, reroute via stealth haulers, human-patterned cloaks to slip blockades. I've specs from coalition runs. They mask thermal better than Nereth weaves. She watched, transfixed, despite herself. Nereth strategists planned in monoliths. He juggled vectors, improvising hybrids. Nereth hulls with human sensor baffles. Creativity bloomed where tradition stalled. And Navali? Faint deployments, mirror their wings but seed decoys, cheap drones mimicking signatures. Buys time to negotiate fractures. Vexari Thaler alliance is brittle. Old grudges, pattern from the ciphers. One's leading. Zaltatra nodded, inputting overrides herself, their claws and fingers dancing in tandem across controls. Personal connection stirred. His optimism grounded her pragmatism. No arrogance, just shared resolve. For the first time, protocol cracked not from weakness, but strength forged anew. Alarms blared from the outer hall. The doors parted to reveal Vorin, her chief legalist, crest ablaze, flanked by robed claimants. Empress, this human's presence profanes the compact. He bears no lineage right, challenge his honor publicly, or the legal weaves unravel. Dual claims invoke ancient law, invalidate him, preserve the throne. The strategy chamber emptied into the grand hall, courtiers swarming like specters. Vorin's faction, purists fearing dilution of divine blood, had timed it perfectly, sanctions fueling their gambit. Jonah stood calm, but Zaltra sensed his tension. The human reading subtexts her guards missed. Vorin's allies positioned for cascade accusations. Legalist, she intoned, mounting the dais, voice thunder in propriety's shell. State your weave, Vorin thrust a scroll holo. The rescuer's pledge lacks honor dual. No Nereth right affirms his valor. Thus, the compact phrase. Demand trial by blade or banishment. Murmurs swelled. Lyra gripped her arm, but Zaltra's mind aligned beats, ciphers, sanctions. Now this. Yield, and isolation won. Reyes has proven valor beyond blades, she declared, eyes locking Vorin's. He deciphered shadows your crypts could not, shielding the Empire from coordinated fangs. Honor is not ritual alone, but deed. Vorin recoiled, mandibles agape. But law bends to sovereign will. She summoned scribes, voice unassailable. Hear the ordinance. The human Jonah Reyes holds status inviolate. Any challenge voids the challenger's claim. The compact endures, shielded by imperial seal against all domestic assault. The hall stilled, then erupted in bows. Purists, seething but bound, Kresh's hologram saluted anew. Jonah met her gaze, a flicker of respect passing unspoken. No triumph, just partnership. His shadows deepened into night. Zalathra felt the throne steady, not in isolation, but the human's quiet capability at her side. Naval shadows loomed, but options asymmetric gleamed. Protocol had cracked, true rule beckoned. A sharp chime pierced the throne chamber's hush, holographic alerts blooming crimson across the obsidian dais. Zalatra's crest flared instinctively, her claws tightening on the armrests as the first report crackled through. Empress, High Guard Beta Squadron diverges. Trajectory aligns with eastern ingress. Border feeds confirm skirmish escalation, enemy vectors piercing the veil. She rose, robes whispering like distant thunder, her voice a blade unsheathed. Sealed the palace. Deploy Alpha and Gamma phalanxes to the breach points. I will command from the forward nexus. Protocol be damned. Isolation was death when traitors nested in the guard itself. Her gaze snapped to Jonah Reyes, the human standing vigilant at the chamber's edge, his compact frame unbowed by the night's vigil. He had lingered after the council, reviewing salvage logs as if the Empire's fate were mere inventory. Captain Reyes, she said, the title a deliberate anchor to his presented role. With me, your insights on asymmetric threats may prove vital. Jonah nodded once, expression calm as polished alloy, slinging a compact tactical slate under his arm. No questions, no deference beyond the nod, merely readiness. As they strode toward the nexus, guards parting like mist, a secondary alert flared. Sabotage element detected. Inbound via service conduits. Guard interceptors engaged. Zaltra's mind raced through lineages of betrayal. Beta Squadron's commander Vexcar had chafed under her reforms, his house allied with the Rimward barons now probing the borders. Coincidence was a myth in Imperial calculus. She keyed her comms. Lyra to secure vault. Double escort. Far below in the palace undercroft, Jonah moved like a shadow uncoiling. He had slipped from the main procession moments earlier, Jonah's instincts, honed in the debris fields of coalition skirmishes, screaming at the anomaly in the guard patterns. The human crouched in a maintenance junction, breather mask sealing his face against the acrid coolant fumes, eyes flicking across his slate's overlay. Nereth service drones hummed past, oblivious but thermal ghosts betrayed the intruders. 6 figures in suppressed guard armor, rigging plasma charges for the Eastern power relays. Empress, he murmured into his private link, voice steady amid the drip of conduits. Sabotage team pinned at grid 47. 1, 2. Rerouting them now. Hold fire on my mark. Zalathra's response was immediate, laced with the steel of command. Authorized. Neutralize without escalation. Court optics demand precision. He didn't waste breath on acknowledgement. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, one hand deploying a jury-rigged EMP pulse from scavenged drone parts. Human improvisation, threading frequencies the Nerth arrays overlooked, while his other traced a bypass into the conduit network. The pulse bloomed silent, fritzing the intruders' suits, 2 crumpled, twitching. The rest scattered, but Jonah was already ahead, venting cryofoam into their escape path from a repurposed extinguisher. It hardened in seconds, trapping 3 more in crystalline webs. The last pair pivoted, energy lances igniting. Jonah rolled low, pattern recognition firing. Their stances mirrored guard drills, predictable in their rigidity. He feinted left, coalition salvage feint, born of 0G dogfights, then struck right, disarming the first with a precise nerve strike, human fingers finding pressure points alien physiology shared but rarely exploited. The second lunged. Jonah sidestepped, using the foe's momentum to slam him into the wall, Slate relaying live feeds to the Nexus. Team contained, he reported, binding the last with conduit ties. Relays secure. Sending guard pickup coordinates. In the forward Nexus, a vaulted war room pulsing with holomaps, Zaltra watched the feeds aggregate. Her high guard liaison, Captain Thalrin, stiffened, his frills quivering. Beta signatures confirmed loyal 2 cycles past. And the human, how did he anticipate the conduits? Anticipate? Zalthra echoed, her tone brooking no doubt as Jonah's silhouette rejoined the chamber feeds. He adapted. Relay his intercept to all phalanxes. Employ those tactics. She turned to Jonah as he entered, sweat beading on his brow but posture unbroken. Report, 6 hostiles, Empress. Charges diffused. No casualties on our side. His eyes met hers levelly, no boast. Merely fact. Thalrin's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Field operatives train cycles for such maneuvers. Outsider jury rigs in EMP variant in minutes. Zalatra silenced him with a raised claw. Outsider? He is liaison by my decree. Position him at auxiliary console. Coordinate defenses. Real time, across all fronts. Jonah slid into the station without pause, fingers dancing across interfaces alien to him mere weeks ago. Adaptability, she noted. The human had absorbed Nereth command syntax faster than her own aides. Cross-referencing border skirmish patterns with palace incursions, screens bloomed, rimward fleets massing, Beta Squadron splitting to feint the throne spire. Skirmishers vectoring for Lyra's vault, Jonah said, voice threading calm through the rising clamor. Recommend pincer. Gamma flanks high, alpha low. Reroute palace drones as decoys. Draw them into kill zones. Thalrin hesitated, frills flattening. Drones lack armament. Improvise, Jonah cut in, already patching schematics. Overload their sensors with false echoes. I've seen it shred salvage packs. Zalathra overrode. Execute. Personal risk coiled in her gut. The vault's breach would end her line, succession fracturing amid the chaos. But command from the Nexus meant exposure. She stood at the central hololith, Jonah at her flank, their shadows merging in the glow. Alarms wailed as the coup crested. Beta lances breached the outer cordon, plasma scoring the spire's flanks, while border assailants hammered the veil. Lyra's vault shuddered under fire, her voice piercing the comms. Mother, shields at 30%. Zalthra's crest ached with the strain, but her order rang clear. Jonah, synchronize counterstrike. Talreen, commit reserves to the vault. The human nodded, multitasking feeds. Juggling drone swarms, phalanx vectors. Even Psywar bursts gleaned from coalition archives. Subtleties of feigned retreat that unraveled Nereth rote formations. Decoys live. Incoming split. 40% diverted. Gamma, advance on my mark. Explosions lit the external cams. Drones mimicking throne signatures drew the skirmishers into a maelstrom of guard lances. Beta faltered. Vexcar's lead ship blooming fire as rerouted power relays. Jonah's earlier save unleashed grid surges. Inside, the sabotage remnants crumbled under repurposed tactics, guards adapting mid-stride to the humans' feeds. Thalrin stared, mandibles agape. He connects the conduits to the border webs? No simulation accounts for such linkage. Zalathra felt it too, the quiet marvel cracking her propriety. Jonah endured without flinch, hours blurring into seamless command, his optimism a steady pulse. Vault secure. Vexcar's core breached, they're breaking. Targeted purge, she commanded, voice resonant for the logs. Broadcast this. The throne endures by high guard valor and the prescient aid of Captain Reyes, whose vigilance preserved our relays and turned the tide. Hollow feeds captured it. Vexcar's surrender, barons recoiling as Imperial fleets stabilized the borders. Lyra emerged unscathed, her escort saluting the Nexus. Courtiers would murmur, factions real, the humans' legitimacy reframed. No longer mere guest, but pivot. As the chamber quieted, Jonah leaned back, exhaling. Clean work, Empress. Team effort. Thalreen approached, frills high in rare accord. Human, your patterns. We research your coalition annals now. Such resilience defies our models. Zalathra met Jonah's gaze, the throne's weight shared in that moment. Coup quelled, skirmishes shattered, yet the feeds whispered of deeper shadows. Partner or traitor, the Empire's calculus had narrowed to him. She chose. Indeed. And you, Captain, remain at my side. The veil holds, but new asymmetries await. Dawn crested the spires, gilding the scars, as protocol fractured further into alliance forged in fire. Explosions ripped through the outer ramparts, their thunder echoing off the crystal spires, as traitor banners unfurled from the eastern gates. Zalathra gripped the command dais in the throne vault, her claws scoring the obsidian edge, while holographic feeds flickered with the chaos. Vexari shock troops breaching the walls in lockstep with House Krell's turncoats, their plasma lances carving toward the inner sanctum. Lyra's claim hung by a thread, her survival the Empire's fragile linchpin, and the capital teetered on annihilation. High guard to the breach, Zalthatra commanded, her voice a blade of imperial steel, cutting through the clamor of aides and generals. Protocol demanded she seal the vault, preserve the bloodline at all costs. But the feeds showed Krell's fleet darkening the skies, their keystone vector, a cloaked orbital pylon, relaying targeting data to the ground assault. Her gaze snapped to Jonah Reyes, the human standing resolute amid the Nereth officers, his coalition-issue gauntlets already interfacing with a jury-rigged console. He didn't flinch. Empress, give me a mix team. Your engineers, my salvage kit. That pylon's the nerve center. Jam its relay, and their coordination collapses. His words carried no plea, just the quiet certainty of a man who'd pulled Rex from the void while others slept. Zaltatra's mandibles clicked in assessment. Humans were anomalies, enduring, improvising, but this, a siege ordained by centuries of ritual warfare, now pivoting on one off-worlder's hunch. Faction whispers already poisoned the air. Krell's betrayal fed by purists decrying her alien-tainted court. Yet duty pierced the doubt. Granted. Captain Vesh, second him with 20 lances. Neutralize that vector rays, or we all burn. Jonah nodded once, his frame unyielding as he led the strike team into the service tunnels, gauntlets humming with overrides. Zalathra tracked their progress via implant feed, her throne vision splitting into a dozen streams. Troop dispositions, shield fluxes, Lyra's secured position in the air's bastion. The human moved like liquid resolve, barking coordinates and crisp nerth while rewiring a defense node mid-stride, multitasking shield harmonics with drone redirects, adapting alien code on the fly as if it were child script. Vesh's engineers faltered at first, their rote precision buckling against the onslaught, but Jonah bridged it, spotting patterns in the pylon's pulse they missed, linking a human pattern recog algorithm to their quantum relays. A Vexari squad ambushed them in the sublevels, lances searing the dark. Jonah rolled through the barrage, endurance unflagging after hours without respite, his sidearm barking precise bursts while he tossed an improvised EMP grenade, salvaged from a downed drone, fused with Nerth crystal to amplify the yield. The blast crippled the foes. Vesh's team pressed forward, amazement rippling through their mandibles. He fights as if pain is beneath him, Vesh subvoked over comms, voice laced with reluctant awe. Zalatra felt the shift in her chest ridges, a pragmatic thrill cracking the formality she'd armored herself in. The feed showed Jonah at the pylon's base, crouched amid sparking conduits, his fingers dancing across interfaces. Creativity bloomed. He didn't brute force the hack. Instead, he spoofed the relay with a feedback loop, drawing enemy fire onto their own vectors while bolstering palace shields. The keystone shattered in a bloom of plasma, Krell's fleet stuttering blind as ground forces fragmented into rout. Cheers erupted in the vault, but Jaltra silenced them with a raised claw. The siege ebbed, Vexari withdrawing, traitors rounded up, but consequences loomed. Purist lords bayed for blood, their outrage at a human's hand in victory a spark to civil war. Lyra's claim stabilized, yet the Empire demanded symbols, not just survival. Jonah emerged from the tunnels, smoke-streaked and steady, Vesh clapping his shoulder in unscripted camaraderie, a pack bond forming across the void. She met his gaze as he approached the dais, the court assembling in ragged triumph. Faction eyes bored into her, Krell remnants seething, traditionalists murmuring of divine dilution. Duty warred with peril. Endorse him publicly, and she invited rebellion. Deny him and squander the edge that saved them. But his competence wasn't novelty. It was necessity, reshaping her calculus of rule. Reyes, she declared, voice carrying to every feed. Your valor has preserved the throne. I name you political consort and formal advisor, bound to this court by deed and decree. Outrage rippled, mandibles clashing, crests flaring. Lord Thalcor of the Purists surged forward. Empress, this off-worlder profanes our lineage. Zaltra's presence quelled him like frost on flame. Lineage endures because of him. Oppose at your peril. Jonah stood silent beside her, humble in victory, offering no boast, merely a nod of shared resolve. It pierced her, not subservience, but equality, earned in fire. By midday, scribes drafted the decree under her claw. In the grand hall, amid hovering hollows of ratified pacts, Zalatra affixed her seal. Jonah integrated into the High Council, granted standing equal to blooded lords, woven into a shared governance lattice. Human insight tempered Nerth ritual, his voice in tactics, hers in tradition. Negotiations with rival houses followed, swift and shrewd. Krell's survivors granted amnesty for fealty oaths. Vexari envoys rebuffed with evidence of their proxy shame. Settlements bound them, updating succession protocols. Lyra's airship now shielded by dual oversight, human and imperial. The court ratified it in a tide of reluctant assent, crests dipping in concession. Whispers turned to wary respect. The human sees threads we cannot. Vesh approached Jonah later, subvosing data slates on Nerth harmonics. Teach us your patterns, ally. We share strengths. As dusk gilded the repaired spires, Zaltra and Jonah stood on the balcony overlook, the Empire sprawling below in renewed order. She turned to him, formality yielding to the bond forged. You reshape us without conquest. He met her eyes, patient humility in his stance. We reshape together, Empress. Your empire's steel, my salvage. Stronger linked. Protocol had cracked, but authority held. Hers unyielding, his complementary. She was born to rule, and learned that true power was finding in